Crazy Stupid Love?
Really?
Okay, nobody alive has seen this movie and lived without back pain. But sure, I'll talk about it. So, this movie came out in 2011 and aired next to some mastodons in the before time. In it, there's some all-star hitters, Steva Carroll, Kevin Bacon, Ryan Gosling, Emma Stone, etc. However, unfortunately, I'm not here to talk about how good or bad this movie is. Nah, I'm gonna talk about the least cohesive character in the whole thing, Cal's son Robbie. Crazy Stupid Love is one of those typical lovable, off-turn, smooth-talking ladies' man type of rom-coms.
Here's what happens. The main guy, Cal Weaver, gets divorced in the opening scene by his wife. He doesn't want the conversation so badly he bails out of a moving car. Bold move TBH.
She tells his tumbling body that she's seeing her hot coworker, David Lindhagen.
After that, we naturally see Cal getting drunk at the bar badgering anybody who would listen about his woes.
He even actually says, you know what's an underrated word?
Cuckold. David Lindhagen made a cuckold out of me. Woo boy.
Don't worry, Cal, we are pretty familiar with that word since 2011, let me tell you. This twisted display of pity and self-loathing is observed by one of the bar's regular, a fancy-dressed lady killer who I'll call Jacob.
Mostly because that's his name.
Oh, while this is going on, there's a parallel story going on involving a character named Hannah. Hannah is a young adult woman, self-inflicted serial monogamist, studying to become a lawyer. Her career doesn't really matter in the movie's story. What she is doing is dating the world's most lifelike doorstop.
I honestly don't remember the dude's name, so let's call him Dingleworth.
Anyway, Hannah is at the destined bar with her supporting character bestie who, in my opinion, needs her own romantic subplot. They're both talking about Dingleworth and how he might propose, blah blah etc., when she passes the bar exam. While these two are having a serious conversation about how they failed the Bechdel test, Jacob overhears them and flirts badly with Hannah. Seriously, he's got some weak-ass game for some reason, probably because he's wearing Ryan Gosling's face. His sidekick friend is immediately infatuated with him because, you know, Ryan Gosling's face. Hannah turns him down and leaves to a hobbit cave to become a lawyer person.
Back to Cal. While Cal is boring yet another woman into a withered skeleton for the 23rd time, Jacob, fed up with his whining, whistles at him. Cal approaches his table and Jacob quotes back at him the sad tale of his cuckoldry.
So Jacob, being the kind-hearted soul that he is, decides to take pity on Cal and teach him how to pick up women in bars.
The sad cuckold story wasn't working out, which is too bad. I think it'd go better if Cal waited like 5 years TBH.
This goes pretty well for Cal for a while. Well, until he goes out for a one-night stand with a woman who happens to be his son's teacher. But that's a story for another time. Jacob kinder disappears from Cal's story for a bit at this point. Meanwhile, Hannah emerges from her study hole and passes the bar exam. While celebrating, she wants desperately for Dean Gluearth to marry her and give her many doorstop-flavored children. Man, being a straight woman sounds really rough.
Props, ladies. He doesn't do any of that.
Instead, he offers her a position at his law firm, which makes her so angry that she dumps him on the spot, drinks her body weight in other people's cocktails, and goes back to bang the hot guy at the bar. See, told you Jacob's entire game is Ryan Gosling's face. She runs up to him and kisses him on his hot mouth 'cause she's feeling romantical, and takes him to his own place where they have heartfelt conversations and take turns using crappy massage chairs. Jacob is ghosting Cal because he's like dating this Hannah character, and he reveals that he's going to meet her parents. Cal, meanwhile, is taking his son's horrible advice and does this big romantic gesture that involves building a windmill mini-golf structure thing. Anyway, while Cal is rudely imposing at his ex's house, Jacob shows up and bum, it's revealed that Hannah is Cal's oldest daughter.
Bo and David Lindharden shows up, cough, cough, Kevin Bacon cough, and hilarious punchings ensue. Honestly, it's almost worth the price of admission to watch Ryan Gosling punch Kevin Bacon in this movie. Another thing happens almost immediately during this part, but it doesn't make sense yet. Now, we have to talk about the most problematic character in the movie.
Cal has a son. The son is named Robbie. Robbie Weaver is the Weaver clan's middle child, and fills the role as the moral compass character.
He constantly complains to his mom about how his dad is going on dates a lot, and is disappointed in with how Cal is so quick to give up on his marriage.
Here's where it gets really bad, because Robbie and his younger sister have a babysitter, Jessica. Jessica has no romantic feelings for Robbie in even the slightest. In fact, the person she actually has a crush on is Cal.
Jessica's feelings have essentially zero impact on Robbie and his relentless quest to woo, date, and marry her. How does he do such a thing, you may ask?
Well, throughout the story there are a few things he decides to do. While Cal is getting dumped by his ex-wife at dinner, Robbie is being babysat by Jessica. While she's there, Robbie decides to behave like the well-behaved young boy with a crush would typically do. Does he give her lots of attention and gifts?
No.
He starts, pleasuring himself. Jessica has a question to ask him and opens the door without knocking and catches him doing that, and quickly closes the door.
While she's desperately trying to forget the horrible thing she had just witnessed, she can't because Robbie wants to talk about it.
He decides that not only is he unashamed of what just happened, but that his inspiration for doing that is, in fact, Jessica herself.
Which he tells her point blank.
Talk about star-crossed lovers, am I right? So Robbie gets it in his head that he absolutely must have Jessica. Consequences be damned. In between sending her what can only be assumed to be massive amounts of inappropriately aggressive texts, Robbie decides to build a stage and wheel it out onto the middle of the cafeteria right before everyone has lunch.
He stands up on stage with a Scarlet J. He's reading Scarlet Letter for school. Not super important, but there you go, and completely humiliating her in the process. Smooth the kid. Real smooth.
Jessica has to basically pry him off of his stage, and, finally, after desperate pleas from him to leave her alone, she gets her way when she tells him that she's in love with someone else.
He relents his quest to date her. Well, not really quits but decides to postpone it.
Jessica, meanwhile, is on her own quest of love, but she's being a little more subtle than Robbie,
because he's kind of a lunatic.
She's in love with Cal Weaver.
Granted, this particular story thread doesn't go anywhere except the crescendo of the Cal Jacob David Lindhagen beatdown scene. But here's what happens. Jessica asks an older classmate how to get with older dudes and gets advice to show that she's not a kid. So Jessica takes this advice to a literal extreme by taking photos of herself in compromising positions in less clothes than normal, and she sticks the photos in an envelope with Cal's name on it.
Polaroids were still a thing in 2011, I just realized. Man, time is a bitch. To be fair, this movie exists in a sweet spot where it's not older than smartphones, but too soon before sexting became popular. That being said, I don't really get why she uses a Polaroid camera, either. So back to the mini-golf Ryan Gosling punch thing.
while Jacob is making David Lindhagen drink his own teeth. Jessica's mother is snooping into Jessica's room, specifically the dresser drawer because parents are terrible people, and finds the envelope.
She gives it to Jessica's father, which is a sane and rational thing to do. Jessica's father, who earlier in the movie has to tell Cal that he and his wife are siding with Cal's wife in the friendship department, goes completely ballistic and drives over to Cal's house to feed Cal his fists.
While Jessica's dad is fist-slapping Cal, Jessica manages to arrive just in time to stop the murder and progress to tell her hulked-out father that Cal obviously had no idea about her photos or her feelings or anything.
Cops are called, and the officer tells all the men sitting bloody on the sidewalk to keep it in the family, which is pretty funny.
Okay, now that I'm thinking about it, none of the underage characters are good role models. I will admit that.
Problematic is almost too weak of a word for it. Anyway, Cal and Robbie end up playing catch later, and Robbie tells Cal that he's given up on love entirely because Cal gave up on his marriage.
Which, honestly, good.
Robbie should give up, otherwise he's gonna end up on a list or something. In the final climax of the story, Robbie graduates from 8th grade in a ceremony that is such an important part of the plot that almost all of the characters are there.
Personally, I think it's a miracle that he found time to pass his classes between all of his Jessica harassment campaigns.
Hell, he's even valedictorian. He gives a jaded speech about how there is no love in the world, that hope is dead. This kid is 12, by the way. So, after Robbie's speech bombs everyone out, Cal takes the mic and proclaims that the Robbie who says all that is a sad little husk of a man because his recent failed murder-suicide plot caused the girl of his dreams to, predictably, run for the hills. He encourages his little nightmare of a child to pick himself up, dust himself off, and continue harassing his love interest.
Cal then proclaims his love for his ex-wife in a similar manner to his ankle-biting demon child, who takes the mic and proclaims his love for Jessica once more before Cal has to mute the mic as Robbie admits to the whole school that she caught him pleasuring himself.
Valedictorian. The story ends with Robbie telling Jessica that since she has a crush on his dad, he'll come back to win her over after he grows up and looks like Cal. Which, in my opinion, kinda sounds like a threat.
This prompts Jessica to give him the envelope of naked photos that she originally made for Cal.
This movie gives me back pain. Or, what a wholesome ending for this lunatic child. There are a bunch of things wrong with this character because the movie is trying to tell his story through the perspective of a light-hearted romantic comedy. The big overarching issue I have with Robbie is that he's supposed to be the voice of reason for the story.
Robbie is the character designed to show Cal the error of his ways and guide him away from the swinging ladies' man lifestyle he built with Jacob's help to get over his ex.
He does this through his persistent declarations of love to the object of his affections. Because it is framed this way, the fact that Jessica's feelings towards Robbie isn't reciprocated aren't taken into account.
Effectively, it removes her agency as a character and turns her into more of a trophy or prize to be won. In fact, the only thing the movie got right is that Robbie doesn't end up with Jessica.
As a writer, I cannot stress enough how bad of a choice this is to make for similar stories.
Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed watching Robbie's increasingly absurd antics while trying to date Jessica, and there's nothing wrong with the character inherently. However, don't make a character who behaves this way as the moral authority who helps other characters see what they're doing wrong.
Robbie needed someone to pull him aside and go, "Hey, lunatic.
Don't do this to this girl. You're behaving in a horrible, terrible way. That's what you should do with a character like this. Send him to jail. Don't give him nudes and a pat on the back."
A character written like Robbie should start out behaving this way at the beginning of the story, experience conflict in their attempt to behave like an unredeemable goblin, and then be forced to change. their behavior into something more similar to how a real human should behave. Moral of the story: when you watch crazy stupid love, don't root for Robbie.